as a guy who studies and teaches story, these things really popped out to me because you're sitting waiting to meet Bill Gates as chief of staff, and there's a ticking clock, that you're 20 minutes late. You're also meeting with your mentor, Dan, and you want to ask him this question, and you're on his boat, and there's like 20 minutes left to go. There's this time when you're dropping out of college, and there's like 3 hours before you turn in your form where you withdraw from college, and you're still talking to your family. And so this is classic screenplay stuff. Did Cal sit you down and say, look, read these screenplays, and I want you to correlate a hero's journey thing? Or how did this work? Because it feels like there's some very classic structural storytelling going on in your book. I'm curious to know how that came about.
First of all, I'm very flattered even by your observations. The big picture is, yes, Cal taught me how to write a story. And, there's this great line from Aaron Sorkin. He says, storytelling has rules. If you don't follow them, you are finger painting. And there's something about, the gravitas of Aaron Sorkin, just saying something so drastic like that, which really, sits well with me. And he's right. And I'm sure you teach this to your students at your workshops, which is there are rules. Now, the whole point of an artist is to bend those rules, change those rules, remix them. But if you're not aware of them, you're finger painting. As great as you think you are, you're finger painting. And a big, one of the reasons it took me, 3 to 4 years to write this book is so much of the process of me learning the fundamentals. And it is way harder than anyone can possibly imagine. So that's the big picture. The answer is yes. Cal Fussman was the single greatest learning, whatever you want to call it, method of learning for me to learning how to write a good story. But, I once watched this interview where a reporter was talking to Elon Musk, at this conference. It's a fireside chat, and the reporter looks at Elon Musk and thinks, he has a really good question. He goes, Elon, you didn't get a PhD in rocket science, how did you learn this? How did you learn rocket science? And Elon Musk literally laughs in this man's face. Literally just starts breaking out in laughter. He's like, the same way you learn anything. You read books and you talk to people. And the simplicity and truth in that answer is, to me, it's just preposterous how there are billion-dollar industries that want to convince you that that's not the truth. But it is the truth. If you can read books and talk to people who have done it before you, you can, if you're literate, and I know actually there's a lot of people who don't have the luxury or, the privilege of good reading skills. But if you're lucky enough that you do, you can learn things. And I read a lot of books on story structure. I read a lot of books on, plot and all of that. And to me, when we made the shift from this being a interview Q&A book to a narrative book, I decided if I'm going to do this, I want to do it as best as I can. And that's why it took so long to write the book. My publisher was not happy. The book was supposed to contractually take 1 year to write. It took 4 years to write and deliver. They were not happy, but I think they were happy with the end result.